What's up? Welcome back to the Hack of All Trades. My name is Anthony, and in today's episode, my 3D printer is going to fix my truck. So, yesterday I went to go work on my truck. I got in the cab to go pull that hood release handle. Dang it! But that handle snapped clean off. So today's project, we're going to try to use this 3D printer and a Fusion 360 and see if we can't design a new, nicer looking handle. Let's get into it. All right, just trying to speed things up a little bit here for you guys. So we're going to do a little time lapse of getting all the information. So basically just getting as many dimensions as I possibly can off of this. We know we're going to beef up a few of the dimensions. So my overall width, we're going with 2.5 inches wide, 2 inches tall. That's the shaft and the handle together. We're going to go with a thickness of 1/2 inch and then by 0.6 of an inch deep for the handle itself. The diameter of that shaft is 1/2 inch in diameter, with that internal hole is a 0.0225 by 0.0225 inch. And we got all the dimensions. Let's jump over to Fusion 360 and let's get this going.
Before we get anywhere, let's go ahead and save this project. And let's call it V1, just in case we need to come back to it after the print and do some tweaks. Okay, let's create a new sketch. I want to create construction box. Let's do a center point. I always like to work around the origin whenever I can. It just makes things a little neater and easier in case, especially when you're trying to find center pieces and whatnot. It's just always easier to work around the origin. So I'm actually doing the overall dimensions of the entire handle. We said it was 2 inches tall, 2.5 inches wide. Let's just start there. Let's do a 2-point circle. We're not going to do a construction this time. Hover over that top line of our construction box. See that triangle pop up, meaning we're in dead center. And let's see, let's go for a big diameter, maybe 12 inches. That looks pretty good to me, I think. Let's call it there. Okay, I like that. And now we need a curve at the bottom. We don't just want to do an offset because all it's going to do is shrink the whole circle down. So the easiest way I know how is just to do a Control-C, Control-V to copy and paste it down at the origin of that circle, the center point of the circle. You'll see these arrows pop up just to move the copied part down. And we're going to move it the entire width of this top handle. So we said for our design, we're going to go 1/2 inch. So I'm going to move that down 0.5, call that a day right there. Zoom back in. Now what we can do is just go grab our trim tool. Let's just trim off the excess of these circles we just created. We don't need that anymore. Let's make sure, zoom out really quick. I just want to make sure we're deleting everything, just so we don't have anything we don't need. All right, there we go. There's the base of our top of our handle. We'll grab a line tool and connect those points just to enclose all of this. And boom, there we go. That is a pretty good start for the top of our handle. Finish the sketch. What we can do now is extrude. What I want to do, because I want to stick around that origin point, so I want to extrude in two sides, 0.3 inches, 0.3 inches. There we go. That's looking really good. We'll clean up these edges in a little bit. But if we turn that sketch back on, just so we can visualize what we're doing here, our origin is all the way down here at the halfway point of its height. So what we're going to need to do is create an offset plane from that center origin. And if this whole thing was 2 inches tall and that origin's at the center, let's go -1 inch to bring us to the bottom of that bounding box. And from there, we'll create a new sketch. We can turn that body off for a minute. Let's grab a circle because we're going to make that shaft now. Let's go a center point, make sure with the center diameter, grab that origin point. Now we said that shaft's diameter was 1/2 inch. So let's make this 1/2 inch. Finish sketch. We can turn that body back on just so we can see what we're doing. And selecting that circle, let's extrude that up and into the top of the handle. But we don't want to cut it. We want these to join. We want them to become one piece. Boom, there we go. I like that. It's looking good. Looking good. All right, so we could probably turn off these sketches for now And what we need to do next, we need to create one more sketch. We can use this face down here, sketch onto that face. And now let's go grab another rectangle. This time we're going to go a center point rectangle right at that center point. This is going to be the hole that goes up the shaft that holds it onto the bar. And we said for that, we're going to do 0.225 inches. We can finish that sketch. Let's extrude that. Now this time we do want to do a cut. We want this to be a void. Let's just go a little bit into the top of the shaft, just a little strength, maybe more adhesive holding power, more surface area for the adhesive to hold on to. So I'm going to leave it there. We'll see how it works. We can always make an adjustment and do it again. All right, so far there is the base of our handle. It's looking pretty good. Before we add any fillets, any rounded edges, let's try to toss the text onto here. I think it might be easier if we do that now. So to do that, let's create an offset plane from the origin. It doesn't really matter where this sits. We're just going to come up above the top of the handle. We can create a sketch using that new offset origin. Before we do anything, just in case, let's make a construction box just to use as guidelines. This is going to be the width, so 2.5 inches. Now it's the depth, so 0.6 inches. We're just matching the top view of the handle. We can finish that sketch. No, we can't because we need to add our text. And we're going to use the corner points of that for our text. And here we go. Hood, we want it all caps. We want it centered and centered. Don't want to flip it. Oh, I like that. Okay, we're going to run right there. I like the look of that. How's that height? Is that too big? It might be a little big and comical. Maybe we could tone that down just a little bit. Call it 0.3. Is that too small? 0.35. Yeah, it looks good to me. All right, so we have that sketch. It's technically floating right above the top of our handle because our handle curves away. So the trick here, we can select our text, go to create, we can emboss, and now all we need to do is select our face. And we want this to cut in. So it's deboss, whereas sticking out or extruding out would be emboss. We want to deboss. And that is looking awesome. Okay. We will leave it right there. And look at that. That is looking sharp. So now let's go through. Let's fillet some of these edges. Let's call this 0.2. Is that too much? I actually think that looks pretty good. Let's see if the 3D printer, be a good test for the 3D printer. Let's see if it can handle it. I like the look of that. Probably add a little bit everywhere else too. These could be a little softer maybe. Maybe go 1. That's a little too soft probably. 0.05. I think that's a good place to start. Let's see, what else should we round over here? That. And that. Should probably also sit at 0.05. No, that's too far. 0.25, 0.02. How's that looking? We'll test it out. We'll see what it's like once it's actually on the printer. Now, for the hardest one, let's grab this top ring. We want to add a fillet to that ring. Bring that out. We don't want to bring it out too far. that it's distorting anything. See how that's going to bring that down. We just want just enough. So I'm going to call it right there. This is my hood handle. All right, so let's save that. Boom. Now what we need to do is we need to go to 3D print because we need to export this as a 3MF. Select our object, hit OK. And we're going to call this our hood release V1. All right, so let's stop right there. We are going to head on over to Anycubic's slicing software, and let's see if we can send this over to the printer. Okay, there we go. So we are now in Anycubic's slicer. We need to bring in that 3MF. So open project, hood release V1, 3MF file. Boom, there we go. Now, I am creating this in PETG. What do you call it? You call it PETG or PETG? I've been calling it PETG. I don't know if that's right. Anyway, I'm going to create this in PETG. I'm not going to change too many of the settings. I just want to see where density is at 40% infill. Okay, I do want it 40%. I want it a little bit more, with a little more infill to add some strength, I'm hoping. And let's make sure we have some supports on. So we do have tree, and let's go ahead and slice. Let's see what it looks like. Again, this is all a learning curve here. This is going to be the very first piece that I've designed and printed. I'm not really sure what to expect. Let's send this to the printer. Let's see what happens. All we can do is try again. So we're going to leave it there for now. I'm going to monitor this from my cell phone for the rest of the hour and 40 minutes so I can go do some other things. So we'll get back as soon as this print is done. Yeah, I think once we clean up this bottom, I think this is going to look pretty nice. It's turned out a lot better than I had expected it to. And I think with some sanding and some fill, and then we're going to paint this whole thing black, I think it's going to look really sharp. All right, so we're going to mix up some JB Weld and hopefully use that to fix this handle here. Let's try it out. All right, so JB Weld's always equal parts. I don't need a whole lot for this, so steel, and we're going to go with some hardener. As you can see, I got a wood clamp holding that shaft out a little bit. I don't want it to recede all the way back in. I need a little wiggle room. I'm just trying to put this on here as thick as I can, as liberally as I can. Figuring it's going to smear out once I put the shaft on there, or once I put the handle on there, I should say.
Make a little bit of a mess here, I guess. All right, moment of truth. We already know that the handle fits. Let's just slide it in there. Just gonna go kind of slow. Got a little bit of build up on that back side. All right. Thinking about right there should be perfect. Now I don't want that clamp to fall off because I don't want this whole thing to JB weld to this back bracket or I'm really in trouble. So I think about right there, we're going to let it set up. I can see I got a little bit of build up there in that back corner, but I'm just going to leave it. If I need to take care of that after the fact, I will. But at this point, I'd rather just let it all cure up and let that handle affix to that shaft there. I'll do the best I can to hold this camera in place so you can see a little bit better. That held on nice. See if I can move this lighter on. You see I got a little bit of that JB weld that kind of bled in the backside, but it's okay. We'll try to chisel that up a bit and clean that up.